So it's all for play for still.
I think so. Do you want to bet against us?
Hi, villains, and welcome to For the Love of Pomegranate podcast in this international break edition, I suppose is what we'll call it. Even though really there hasn't been any international games just yet. I think we've just seen, I only found out today that Italy lost. That'll tell you how much of a shit I give about international football. Italy finally lost after 14 years of not losing a game or something along those lines. But I don't get too enthused for international season, Paddy.
Not anymore, anyway.
No, I'm kind of over it. I'm kind of over international, and plus the fact that it comes back, and it seems to be biting us in the balls more than it's biting any other team. At the minute, that scrap it. It's no good unless they're coming to play in the UK. Then don't go play. Look, we've had this conversation 1,000,001 times, but I suppose it'll be interesting to see what comes of it now in the next few days and over the next week or so. But that's not what we're here to talk about, Paddy. We're here to talk about Emi Martinez getting nominated for the Yashin Award, which is basically the Golden Glove Award, which is basically the Ballon d'Or for goalkeepers. Paddy, I genuinely I think it's an amazing accolade for the club and for him. Absolutely unbelievable.
Of course it is. And you know what? He deserves it. He's had an amazing season. He's won the what do they call it in South America? The
best goalkeeper.
No, the overall thing that the Argentinians won.
The Copa America.
Copa America. And he's had an amazing season, breaking records with Aston Villa, equaling Brad Friedel's clean sheet record. You know, he's well respected throughout the world. But I worry about these accolades because it makes it harder for us to hold on to these kind of players. So forget about the accolades. Let's get trophies on the board and attract players as well to enhance these guys' lives at Aston Villa.
Yeah, I suppose. But it is good. We've been through. We've been through just even this week. We've been through where clueless Brazilian commentator and Neto basically said, "Who are Aston Villa Football Club?" And if you want to attract players, making sure that we're in a position whereby players can fulfill their dreams, players can get these individual accolades, will then entice other players to come here. Maybe they're earlier on in their careers. So look at Atlanta. Atlanta haven't won anything of note. Yes, they've gone into the Champions League and so on, but they were known as a club who will give you your chance and will make you a star, and then maybe pass you up the ranks then if needs be. And we're going to have to probably deal with that for a while, but hopefully we don't need to deal with it for much longer. And if we get into Champions League and into Europe very, very soon, then that's going to be something that we won't have to worry about in the not too distant future, hopefully. But I kind of joke. That's exactly the goal. That's it. And look, our youth teams that are coming through, our academy players that are coming through. Just before we move on to the main topic of discussion for this podcast, which will be Dean Smith and the fantastic 3 years that he's had, I think it would be remiss for us not to talk about the future, about a lot of the stuff that's going on with the Villa Academy and the Villa underage setup at the moment. Obviously, going to Burton and beating Burton, coming back from 2-0 down to win was quite an achievement in itself, given the youthful nature of the squad. I didn't get to see it live. I was stuck in work, Paddy, but I know that you got to see a good portion of it live. What did you make of it all together?
Yeah, well, it seemed to be nondescript early in the game, and when I turned it on, they had just they hadn't equalised. They'd gone to 2-1 just before half time. So I watched all the second half, and they were good value for that scoreline. I thought they were excellent. I had a little joke with Simon Leach, who was at the match with last week, was sitting beside me. He was in Burton on Tuesday night before he flew back to Chicago. Simon from the Chicago Lions. And I joked with him to say, who knows, maybe we might get back to Wembley yet again this year. Is it Papa John's? Is that what it's called?
Papa John's, exactly. Yeah.
Can you imagine us getting to that final? Because we'd sell out our section. There'd be some crack.
Absolutely, it'd be great. And you know what? It would be one of those ones that it'd be one of our ones that would one of those ones that people would go to say that they were there if they were to win it, you know. And
Yeah.
plus, look, hey, we've been starved of silverware. We haven't really won anything of the script in the last 20 years, like, so it's more than 20 years. I know we've won the playoff, we won the championship playoff, we won the Peace Cup, things like that. I know we've had underage success or whatever, but that would be a pretty decent cup to win. But hey, listen, look, it's going to be a journey in itself, and as you say, I think we'd set it out if we were to go there. But yeah, so I suppose we will keep an eye on that. Obviously, Cameron Archer scoring 3 goals in that competition and in that game during the week, he was fantastic. Yeah, I just saw the highlights. He was fantastic. And I put out something on Twitter, and I was afraid to say what my comp was, but I'm not afraid to say it anymore, because I said that I've got a wild comparison for Cameron Archer, because he doesn't even look like this player from an actual physiological point of view. Like, he's not as tall as him. He's a completely different body shape. But the way he shapes and the way he strikes the ball without fear at the edge of the box really reminded me of someone. I said, and I put it up on Twitter, and I went, I'm too afraid to say it because of ridicule. And then people were coming back with these absolutely insanely wild comparisons, I thought. And I went, right, okay, I don't think it's too bad. And I know a lot of people were asking me for it. I just didn't get back. I haven't been able to, barely been able to get to my phone this week. But I think he reminds me an awful lot of, and it was only because I was watching I think it was the 1998 season, and he reminds me an awful lot of when Nicholas Anelka broke onto the scene. Nicholas Anelka was taking shots from the edge of the area, and he was placing them in the bottom corner, and he wasn't afraid to take shots. He wasn't afraid to run around defenders, get in behind defenders, and you know, he was that kind of exuberance of youth about him. And Cameron Archer is a throwback. He's not like, he's kind of, I think Rashford was kind of like that as well when he first broke onto the scene a couple of years ago too. You know, he just had this lust for just, you know, I get the ball, I'm going to take a shot, I'm confident enough, I think, and if it goes in, great. And he's on a great run of form at the moment, and fair play to him. You know, he's exactly what Villa needs. He's exactly like kind of what Villa got with Gabriel Bonlahor, just somebody who's grabbing the chance with both hands. I know stylistically he's completely different to Bonlahor, but he's grabbing his chance with both hands. And there's a really good professional career there for a guy that was at Solihull Moors playing on the wing, and people weren't even sure was he going to cut it in professional football, never mind in the Premier League.
And that's, I was just about to make a comparison there, because I know Louis Barry has got an awful lot of stick in recent weeks on social media, but just when you go to open your mouth about Louis Barry, just think what Cameron Archer did last year, and he wasn't exactly tearing up trees. And when I saw him come back into games earlier in the season, I was like, really? Is this guy up to it? But he has just thrived on the opportunity and thrived on being around full stadia and fans. So he's one for the future, and he's one of many for the future. And it does put a smile on your face to see one of our own doing so well.
Absolutely. Just before we get on to the Dean Smith conversation as well, I know there's quite a lot of people out there that are doing the sleep out for the Aston Villa for the AVFC Foundation tonight. I want to commend you all. You're fantastic people. It's for an unbelievably good cause. I know our good friends Kieran O'Callaghan and Ben O'Callaghan, B6 Ben, are doing it. If you go over to Ben's Twitter page, or even onto Kieran's Twitter page, you'll see there's a I think it's Just Giving or Virgin Money link there. All proceeds obviously go to the foundation. It's a fantastic cause, and look, at this time of year, these sleepouts are not an easy thing to do. I hope the weather holds up for everybody, and I just commend you all for doing it and for such a good cause. But if anybody has anything to spare, you know, it's really good, and you know, it's all going into the one pot, you know. But it's a fantastic cause to donate to as well. So Dean Smith, Paddy, he's going to be 3 years in the role. He's going to be 3 years in a row on Sunday, isn't it? The 10th. Today's what? Today's the 8th. Yeah, tomorrow's 9th, and there's the 10th. That's usually what comes after the 8th, 9th, and 10th. It's the 10th. Yeah, it's Dean Smith is going to be in the role 3 years on Sunday. And We said we just do a little piece in him, or maybe a long piece. Sometimes little pieces turn into long pieces. But we said we do a bit on him and just have a conversation on him because, as you know, we're unashamedly pro Dean Smith. We're very much Dean Smith in. I had T-shirts printed up. I had 3 prototype T-shirts printed up with Smith in on the back of them at the end of not last season, the season before, and the one where we nearly got relegated. And I was going to sell them. And then I went, I don't want to tempt fate in case we get relegated. And then we didn't get relegated. And I said, you know what? It's okay to hold on to them. I think, no, I won't bother going selling them. But if he does come under fire, we might put them up online again. But we're unapologetically pro Dean Smith. Dean Smith has grown as a manager. He never came into this gig fully formed. He never came into this gig thinking that he was God's gift to anything. He came into this gig knowing that he was going to sink or swim with his boyhood club, and that's an absolutely unbelievable fairy tale kind of journey for anybody to have, Paddy. Specifically when he came into the club, being 14th in the championship. And, at that stage, having a squad that had a ridiculously poor sell-on value, having, players that didn't have the legs for his system. We look at where we were back then and what we had to do when we came up into the Premier League. But let's have a little look down through, I suppose, the 3 years of Dean Smith. And if you give me one moment, I just want to share up something here on that, because I've just tried to keep it very high level with an overview of how he has, how I feel he has performed anyway over the season, the last 3 seasons. And Paddy, I know that you put together some things that you want to discuss on Dean Smith as well. Oh no. Give me a moment there, guys. Talk amongst yourselves. I have a brand new system. Brand new. I've been talking about it for ages. Getting a new computer system. And boy, did I get a new computer system. It's a pretty oh no, it's not going to let me share this. Isn't that a dose? No.
You'll have to talk through it. Oh, there you go.
Whoa, yeah, and that's not what I wanted to share anyway. So let me just as I said, talk amongst yourselves, everything will be fine.
Alex Roberts says, nice surprise as always for your chats. Dean Smith in line for England when we get top 6 in 2 to 3 years. No, Alex. No, Alex.
Absolutely not.
He's our man. He's staying there.
Absolutely. I'm going to share up this. I'm just going to share the full screen here instead. It's just going to you're going to have to deal with it for a moment. I do apologize. So basically, I just put a little piece together here. Obviously, Dean Smith joined in the 18-19 season. We were hired when he was 14th in the championship. Probably the highlight of that season was the 10-game winning streak. Broke a 109-year record that we hadn't broke. That had lasted for 109 years, should I say? Took one of the funnest times I can remember in being an Aston Villa fan for a long period of time, based on the fact that I had almost given up hope of getting promoted at that stage, and then this 10-game win comes out of nowhere, and I absolutely loved the Grim Reaper piece that people were putting up on Twitter, where the Grim Reaper was knocking on a door and all the different doors as they were going back. And it was just, there was a real good atmosphere around Villa. We came into that 18-19 season, we finished that 18-19 season with an absolute flurry and with a situation whereby there was real optimism and hope. No longer had we the shackles of Tony Jaa. No longer had we Winus and the winding up orders, but we had fresh new enthusiasm from new owners. We had a relatively young manager. He was 47 at the time, who'd come in and taken over the club and was trying to mold it. Granted, nobody was fully sure as to where he could go as an actual manager back then, because of the fact he'd only managed at the lower levels, but he was exactly what we needed at that period of time. He came in, hit the ground running, and the rest is history. We get promoted after those horrific seasons down in the championship, which was a pretty enjoyable league to be in at times, but wasn't enjoyable when we weren't winning. And he brought back that winning feeling to us, Paddy, and he brought back that feeling of relevance, I suppose, that we weren't going to flounder away mid-table, turn into a Nottingham Forest, turn into what Leeds were at that time, or maybe even worse, a Sunderland or a Wigan or a Hull, and drop down through the divisions.
Yeah.
We're way too big a club to be able to do that, but other big clubs have done that, had done that as well previous to that. And Dean Smith came in here and showed his mettle, being a manager that was not only tasked with saving a big club, but saving his club and trying to bring them back to the Premier League. Talk me through that period of, I suppose, his career, Paddy, specifically the 18-19. What was your views on him when he came in? Were you was it all bed of roses for you? Did you have any concerns with him? And be honest, no.
Yeah, well, being honest, I've always admired him from afar, because when Brentford came for those years that we were in the Championship, they tended to play us off the park. And he played lovely football, and it was a joy to watch, but not a joy to play against. My biggest concern for him was, that he had amazingly come along this, let's face it, a huge, huge, huge opportunity as a Villa fan to go and manage the team that you supported as a boy. When, let's face it, we were in the absolute shit at that stage. 14th in the Championship, and I put together a few of my best bits and low points and good signings and bad signings that he made, and we'll get to that later on. But just after he came in, we lost 3-0 to Wigan around Christmas time. And it was at that point I had resigned ourselves to the fact that, maybe we will need to fight a little bit to stay in this division, as in stay up. We were languishing, whatever it was, maybe 7 or 8 points above the drop zone. The most important thing that was we stabilize that season and, push on the year after. But lo and behold, that run of games, starting, I believe, with we beat Derby 4-0. And then the following week, my first time to go to an away Derby game at St Andrews, the day that Jack got punched. And to watch it that day and unfold and to see just the outpouring of emotion from the stand and just the atmosphere, everything about that day is something I'll never forget till the day I die. But there was just that sense of hope that this was we were going in the right direction, that we were going to go and push on. And who would have foreseen that we were going to go on and win the next 8 games, nearly 9 when the 11th game was the game against Leeds that descended into a farce. So we'll never know what would have happened there if it was just played out normally. So but at that stage, I think it was just we had a draw against Leeds was enough to qualify for the playoffs, and that's all that mattered. But when he came in at 14th, I never in my wildest dreams believed that we'd be looking at another playoff. And just to keep people grounded, because I completely understand with managers, there's no sitting on the fence with a manager. You always either like him or you don't like him. And the best example of that I can give, everybody loved John Gregory. And for some reason, I was the only one who didn't like him. I never warmed to him, never liked him. But as time went on and as it became historical, I realized as I got older, that why people loved John Gregory. But at the time, I wanted him out. I even remember going for a pint the day that he went. I'm delighted that we're going to get a new manager. And that's just the way it is when people, look back on managers' reigns. So I'm delighted for Dean Smith. I'm delighted he got that opportunity. And if we go back a season before, if we hadn't have lost to Fulham, we could be still looking at Dr. Tony still in the job. We could have gone up and gone straight back down. There's just so many ways of looking at what might have happened. And it's taught me a brilliant life lesson with football, that everything happens for a reason. And while you're disappointed after bad results, the next one is only around the corner. People were on such a high over the last few weeks after absolutely smashing Everton, beating Man United for the first time at Old Trafford in 12 years. And then everybody's on the low again this week because we lost to Spurs. these things are going to happen. So, we just, if we could all just get behind him and just remember what might have been, and we might not be in this situation with the owners we have if we'd have beaten Fulham that day. And that game, I think, will be even more important in our history than beating Derby in that playoff final. And if people look at it the right way, I firmly believe that.
Yeah, and look, I can't disagree with anything you said there, because, like, when you think about it, I genuinely, my heart to hearts, I'm not sure that any manager in English football that we could have got at that time, other than Dean Smith, would have got us promoted. And I know everyone can look at me and say, it's easy to say that now in hindsight, because you know what he is, and you've seen him, you've seen what's happened, and what's done is done, kind of a situation. But genuinely, I just think there was a little bit of sparkle. I think there was a little bit of magic. There was a little bit of fairy tale in that. His fact that, the lovely story. Well, I'm going to call it a lovely story. I can't imagine it was as lovely a story for Dean as it was for everybody else that listened. But the fact that his dad not being in the best of health, obviously having dementia, being in care, and him going to after every game. And I sometimes I even get teary-eyed thinking about it myself, when something meant so much to you and your dad. Let's say we've all been in that situation. Where you want them to be such a big part of, you want family to be such a big part of your success. And the one time then that he can go to his dad with something where he directly affected, he directly was the reason, or one of the reasons, or 90% of the reason for a turnaround in their club's fortune. And he said he went and he told his dad, and he said, I think at the time he said he wasn't sure if his dad, he was probably sure his dad didn't even understand what he said, but he said he got a smile from him, and that was enough. It was enough to be able to go and do that. Oh Jesus, sometimes you being like it kind of catches me right here in the middle of my chest when I heard that. And that in itself, if he never does anything else for Aston Villa, the fact that he has that moment himself as a Villa fan, we would all kill for that moment. Absolutely kill to be the man that put us on an even keel again. And we can talk about Swiris and Edens. And yes, I think since 2019 onwards, they've definitely taken over a massive leadership. They've definitely filled the leadership void. But I genuinely believe in the year 2018, 2019, when he was hired at 14th in the championship, he filled that leadership void. He became the leader of this club, and he brought himself into it. Granted, he did have as we said, an aging team, and there was a lot of leaders in the field there, the Yeneks, the Whelans, even Uncle Albert was scoring goals for fun. But it was Dean Smith that pulled it all together, and Dean Smith made it click. And the 18-19 season is one of the funnest second half of the seasons that I can remember in definitely in the last 10 years of being an Aston Villa fan. Moving on to the 2019-20 season, I've made 3 bullet points here for us as well. Obviously, kept us in the league was what ultimately happened. But he, like, for a manager that is inexperienced at the highest level, had never managed there, never coached there before. And I'm just going to share a couple of comments there as well. There was one comment that I saw here, and I think it's quite apt to pop it up here. So Soupy Mark says, for me, Dino is still inexperienced at this level, and even more so with the squad and formations that he can rotate and change, but he's growing with the club, and I feel he's the man to push us forward. Absolutely. And that point was never so evident as it was in 2019, 2020, when we came up to the Premier League, when we overhauled the team, bringing in, 11 signings, when Patash was reportedly, I'm going to say, at odds with Purslow over 1, maybe 2 signings. Patash leaves at the end of the season. Dean Smith has those players. He has to make do with those players. And it was a complete overhaul of the system. People questioned it. People questioned the tactics. But the biggest thing with 2019-2020 season was Dean Smith got experienced, and Soupy said he's a bit inexperienced, but that's what happens. Experience is what you get. What you don't get, what you want. So the setback
Exactly.
experience only comes from setbacks 99% of the time. The lucky few will gain experience from winning, will be born into a fortuitous situation, etc. Dean Smith had to learn basically the school of hard knocks in that season,
Yeah.
because not only did he oversee a squad transformation, he had to deal with COVID, he had to deal with the death of his aforementioned father, which happened, during that season. And then he went and he kept us in the league, albeit by the skin of our teeth. And that
Yeah.
2019-2020 season, I can guarantee you, when you talk to Dean Smith in years and years to come, when his biography is out there, he will say he learned more in that season than he probably did in his whole managerial career.
That's for sure. I think we all grew up that year with COVID and everything else that was going on.
Yeah.
But just with regards to what he said there about him being inexperienced, he's dead right. And if you talk to the likes of Jurgen Klopp or Pep Guardiola, they will tell you that they're inexperienced. They'll tell you that every day is a school day and they're learning as they go along. And every different little situation that's put in front of you teaches you so much in regards to how you handle the next situation, because you just pick little nuggets out. It's like any job that you do. You make mistakes as you go along. You pick little nuggets out and you learn from them. But like he has just assembled a culture within that team that there's so many likable characters that, when I was doing my coaching badges, loads of references are made to what the All Blacks do, that regardless of how good of a player you are, if you haven't got the right personality, or for the want of what they say is, if you're a dickhead, you've nothing got to do with being an All Black, and you'll never be an All Black. And I can see a lot of that in what Dean Smith is doing in the culture of our club. And for me, he doesn't suffer guys who don't put in the effort and don't put in the work. They get bombed out straight away. Guys who, you look back at Danny Drinkwater, Ross Barkley, these kind of guys who obviously weren't putting in the work or weren't putting it in on the training pitch. There was an opportunity then to come and stay with us for a long period of time, and they just didn't take their opportunity. And that all leads me to believe that he has created this culture of we're here to work. We'll enjoy it as we work, but we're here to work first and foremost, and that hard work will deliver results.
Matthew Bambrick put up a great comment here as well, and this is probably the best time to talk about it as well. If you want insight into Dean Smith as a man and a leader, watch his talk at BCU. Man is a cultural architect. Everything he speaks about and how to run a club, man strides with it. Would you believe, Matthew, I played that. I work for a multinational and I work in management with them. And would you believe I played that exact speech for some of my some of the guys that report into me, and I played it. They all know I'm a massive Aston Villa fan or whatever, but he spoke some truths about team building, about culture building, about essentially about just not, as Paddy, as you put it there, just not being a prick. He spoke an awful lot about it, that you don't have to be this ruthless character that Hollywood tells you essentially to get ahead in business, to get ahead in the team aspect, to get ahead in your career. You can put yourself first, but you can do it in a nice way too. And his collective message in that about the collective work rate of a team will then allow players to get their moves. He spoke about Rico Henry in it, if I remember rightly, Matthew, and you might, if you're still here, you might be able to correct me on that, because I haven't watched it in quite a while, but I think he spoke about, well, he mentioned I had a left back at a club that was in his early 20s, and then he got X move, and I think he might have spoke about somebody else as well, but it was really interesting to see him speak, that he actually cared about his players, and he cared about what he could deliver for his players, and he knew that his players were going to move on, and he knew that was a culture that you could build with at that level that would allow you to have success and will allow a feel-good factor to the club. And it also then brought around players staying at the club for a small bit longer because they believed in him, and it was a fun atmosphere and people enjoyed coming to work. And that's pretty cool to have, because Remy Gard came into this club, if we can remember him, and I know there's a collective shiver going down the backs of everybody when he mentioned someone like him. He came in, he treated everybody like shit in the end of his shoe when he came into the club. And it just doesn't work. Like we're in the year 20, well, when we're talking about this in 2019, 2020, when he was here, that just doesn't work anymore. The players you're playing with, they've got their own brands on Twitter. They like you can go out and you can give out about them, you can talk about them in a post-match interview, and you can denigrate them if you want. All they have to do is go on Twitter. They're going to reach millions more people than you will ever reach as a manager. And so the way that you manage teams, the culture building is so important within that team and within that dressing room. And I think 2019, 2020, everybody took their licks. They got bruised, they got battered, they got I'll never forget seeing this. We had just lost to United, I think it was, or maybe it was a draw. Maybe it was the draw to Everton. And I thought that everything was slipping away from us that season. And a graphic came up in the bottom left-hand corner, and we had one game at home, next game away, one game at home, the next game away. And it was was what everybody was pointing to, that even the league table was laughing at us because we'd spent 100 million and we were doing a Fulham. And all that kind of stuff, as I said before, experience is what you get, what you don't get, what you want. All that kind of stuff, you can see that Dean Smith understands about culture, that if your culture is strong, your team ethic is strong, that people believe in the process. And I hate this trust the process stuff that's come from American sports, but it does ring small bit true, specifically in young teams and in teams that are that are building for the future. And Dean Smith obviously knew that at that stage. And we go on to the 2020-21 season, where we could see the fruits of taking those licks in the season before. Because moving on to the 2020 and 2021 season, that got people talking about us. Jack Grealish sprung to stardom in 2020, 2021. Ross Barkley was being talked about again for England. Ollie Watkins started scoring goals. 7-2 against Liverpool. 3-0 against Arsenal. 1-0 against Leicester. Who are these Aston Villa? What's happened to Aston Villa? Going on a massive run at the start of the season. Scoring goals like we're going out of fashion. Beating top 6 sides. That's, the culture doesn't just come overnight. It can't. Poor year the year before. Keeping that culture was the main part for Dean Smith in the coming season. We got off to a great start, and then we had to manage around injuries. And yes, we didn't get the points, and yes, he couldn't really do what he needed to do with regards to those injuries. But what he did in the next season was, first season he learned how to build a culture. Next season, I feel he learned how to manage around injuries. He learned that with the squad he had, he couldn't manage around injuries. And he wasn't able to, because Jack Grealish got injured and we went to pot. Exactly.
And as we can see now that our big hope, which is Leon Bailey, is injured, and yet we can manage without him by tinkering the system and doing what we need to do to get results. And that's what happens when you have a squad that's capable of competing, not just a team, which we've had for the last 2 years. We now have a squad. We now look at our bench and go, we can actually change this game by bringing players on, which we haven't been able to do. And that's a luxury that he's enjoying this season.
Yeah. And it's something that, once again, you can't just, I'm not going to say that you can't. It's very seldom that you manage in the Premier League and then day one you actually figure it all out. How many Premier, like Ranieri didn't figure it out in the Premier League day one. He came in, he was with Chelsea. Yeah, he maybe a couple of fruitful years and so on.
Yeah.
I don't know, has he still figured it out? Rafa Benitez came into the league, probably figured it out quicker than most. Klopp came into the league, having looked on from afar. Needed to take a few months to get into the league and so on. Unless you have that high-powered squad, there's very few managers that would have come up from the league before and come straight into the Premier League. And we've seen some managers get lucky. Chris Wilder springs to mind. Phil Brown springs to mind. They've gotten lucky coming into the Premier League. And who was George? What was his name? George. That was over Ipswich back when Marcus Stewart got all the goals. George Burley. Yeah. Got like teams get lucky when they get promoted. Dean Smith has come in. He got extremely unlucky in his first season in the Premier League, and he's had to learn. And as I say, he learned that we couldn't play the way that he wanted to play us in 2019-20. He learned that he needed to manage around injuries, and he couldn't use them as an excuse in 2021. And I think 2021 put us back on the map. Again, it put us on the map from the point of view of, beating big teams. The 7-2 against Liverpool reverberated around the world. When was the last time you could say that about Aston Villa? I don't think there was an Aston Villa victory, even winning League Cups, I don't think would have reverberated around the world because of the era we're in with social media. I don't think as many people in the world in 1994 and 96 knew we were a championship team a cup winning team at that time as people did know that we beat Liverpool 7-2.
Well, that's it. I think the last time that we shocked the world and everybody took notice was when we beat Man U 3-1 in the opener in 95. Because they were announced as world beaters this season before, and they were going to go on and dominate English football. And they went and lost Aston Villa on the opening day in the grey shirt. And Alan Hansen said, "You win nothing with kids." So it's that was a huge thing. One thing, just to go back a season there, about the 1920, the one thing that often gets overlooked, we had our little bit of luck against Sheffield United when the Hawkeye didn't work, but we also had an abnormal amount of decisions go against us in that season that nobody ever remembers because nobody was watching us because we were languishing at the bottom of the league and we weren't live on telly every week. So let's not forget about that one either. Have we lost Neil? Hello, are you back?
Oh, I think I am back. Yeah, geez, I don't know what happened there. I completely missed what you were saying. You were telling me that you wanted to go back to something.
Yeah, so basically I just went back and everybody remembers that the Sheffield United one where we got the decision when Hawkeye had a day off and the goal didn't go in, but nobody remembers the 7, 8 or 9 decisions that went against us in that. Because we were down the bottom and in the shit, the referees didn't care less. And the VAR decisions that went against us, the Crystal Palace one where Jack was...
Definitely.
All of these things, that's something that gets overlooked in that season. I mean, when you're down in the shit, you have a look at the teams that are down there this season, the likes of Norwich and those, they're going to be the ones that those decisions go against this season.
Absolutely. I had a great salient point there until I started panicking after I could see my internet was dropping out there. Once again, I need to get into my internet service provider. I had a really good point there, and I was in a nice flow with Dean Smith as well at that stage. Specifically, I know what I was going to say. It was to do with this comment from Dara. Dara asked, "Is his greatest achievement promotion at a 7-2 against the best Premier League team of the last 3 years?" There's a slightly loaded question there, Dara. I would say promotion is definitely his greatest achievement to date, and I think regardless of what happens with Aston Villa, bar winning a cup with Aston Villa or getting Aston Villa into the Champions League, I would, dependent on the cup as well, I would say Dean Smith would say getting Aston Villa back to the big time is going to be one of his greatest achievements.
But I'd actually question that, and I'd say he'll probably tell you that keeping them up was harder than getting them up.
Yes, that's probably true. Yeah, that's probably true.
So that first season to keep them in the Premier, and that was so vital at the time because the whole financial fair play was about to axe down on top of us, and there was a whole lot of things going on. So to keep us up was absolutely huge. Don't get me wrong, getting promoted, winning that game at Wembley, I'll never forget it as long as I live. It was one of the greatest atmospheres I've ever been at in my life. But staying up and the emotions that day, the draw against West Ham, beating Everton the week before, all of these kind of things, they go forgotten because there was no trophy at the end of it. There was no big thing that happened. We stayed up. You might remember Roy Keane took the piss out of us a little bit and wonder why we're celebrating. Yeah, that kind of stuff was going on. So that will easily get forgotten in Dean Smith's CV, but to me that was the most important thing he's done.
Yeah, I can't disagree, but you can't stay up if you don't get promoted. I suppose.
Well, I understand that. Yeah,
it's the chicken and the egg syndrome. I suppose there it's the chicken.
Well, I think what he asked was it the greatest achievement? I think his greatest achievement was keeping us up.
Yeah,
as opposed to getting us up.
Good point. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Looking on to the 2021 season as well, and look, we'll go back and I'm sure we'll pick and point in different parts of this for, when we're closing our closing arguments at the end for why Dean Smith is the greatest manager to ever pull up his pants in the morning. But it in 2020, 2021, I think it's fair to say, and look, the season is a pup only at the moment. There's only 7 games in, but he's on his 3rd different squad. And I know people are going to say, wait a minute, he's had some of those players have been here for 3 years now, so you can't get away with saying that. And what I'm going to say is, yes, they have, but Dean Smith's go-to number 1 player in 2018, 2019 was obviously it was Jack Grealish, but Tammy Abraham scored 26 goals that season, and he scored a hell of a lot of goals for Dean Smith. Dean Smith didn't have that goal scorer then in 2019, 2020. We didn't have a goal scorer for a good portion of that season. We bought Wesley. He got I think was it 3 goals, got injured, and then we brought in Samatta. So he had no goal scorer in his first season in the Premier League. Then in his second season in the Premier League, with Jack Grealish gets injured for 10 years. We didn't have the squad that we have now. Yes, a lot of the players that played last season are still playing now, but he couldn't manage around those injuries. And plus, Jack Grealish was the team. As much as we sat here and said, we're not a one-man team, I think deep down in our hearts, all of us went, oh, we're not a one-man team, but Jesus, we could do with Jack Grealish right now, And now this season, we're saying, I can't wait. We've 10 points in the bag. I think we've 7 goals scored. We've beaten Manchester United, and we're going, the best is yet to come, because we still have Leon Bailey, who we've seen nothing of. Sanson still is coming back to fitness, and we've got this brand new system that we know we can use when we can pull that out when we need to, but we also know we can go back to the 4-2-3-1 as we saw in the as we've seen as well earlier on in the start of the season and in last season as well. So when I talk about his 3rd different squad here, he's relying on different people to bring the spark and bring the magic again. And for me, that constitutes a 3rd different squad as such for me. And that's why I didn't say he's on his 3rd different marquee player, which he is, but he's also on his 3rd different squad. This is the big point for me. Big piece for me is through 2020-21, he brought on Shaky. He brought on Craig Shakespeare on board. So we go back to 1920. He was inexperienced. He had to learn how to keep us in the league. He knew that, right, there's a lot to be done here. I can't do this on my own. Myself and Richard can't do it. And John Terry can't do it. We need to bring on Shakespeare. Brought him on. Then he had a coaching overhaul again this year. So what we've seen is he brought on a coach in 2021. He picked the right coach who really excelled us from an attacking point of view. Then brings in 2 coaches in 2020. I've just realized my fucking slide is wrong here. I always get something wrong in 2021. And you didn't even tell me, Paddy, and you're looking at it.
I was being nice. I just would have said nothing.
But nice guys finish last, Paddy. So, but in 2021, 2022, he's brought in Danks and he's brought in McPhee. And on the face of it, these 2 guys look like the right decision as well. So he's not afraid to delegate out. He's not an autocratic leader. He really goes back to what Matthew said in his comment there, that, he grows a culture, and growing a coaching culture as well as a playing culture is very important. And that in turn is growing our profile further. People are intrigued by us. People are wondering, what are Villa up to now that they've lost Jack Grealish? Villa lose Jack Grealish to go out and beat United for the first time in decades. What we want to figure out. And I'll tell you why people are intrigued with that. I did a TV hit for I made I made my global TV appearance, ladies and gentlemen, on Premier League TV yesterday. And I was speaking to Leroy Senior, and he wanted to talk about Aston Villa and what the fans' feeling was at Aston Villa. Now, you won't be able to see this, you weren't able to see it in UK and Ireland. It was broadcast around the rest of the world because I'm not allowed to be on UK TV. But basically, there was a feeling that they couldn't understand where Villa were going from the point of view of everything was looking really good and how they were able to rebuild, should I say. And that was a really interesting thing, a really interesting point for them to come across. And also they couldn't understand maybe why there was a small bit of a sense of maybe deflation and disappointment with how Villa had started the league because of the way that Villa have dealt with losing Jack Grealish as well, which I thought was a really, really interesting point. So further on from this year, we still have people talking about us. He's grown the profile further, and hopefully come the end of this season, we'll have people talking about us in a very healthy manner when we get into Europe.
Of course, and there's a lot to discuss in that point. But he has brought the profile of the club on further, and the one thing that will get lost in the beginning and in the start of this season is the disjointed pre-season that we had. Obviously, he knew from a long time out that we were going to be losing Jack. That was perfectly obvious when it happened, that this was being prepared for a long time. He then had to wait until whatever it was, 2 weeks before the season ended, before he started bringing in the likes of before the season started, the likes of Danny Ings, Leon Bailey. These signings come in very, very late. We had COVID difficulties. We had preseason friendlies. Like, we've been through all this before. So he's regrouped. And even with regrouping, he hasn't been able to put his strongest team on the pitch once this season. I was kind of hoping that'll be next weekend, but it's not looking like that either, because we might be without a goalkeeper as well. But look, we'll see.
About that. Well, Paddy, do you know what the team has been? The team. Sorry, there was my real Irishness coming out there and not pronouncing my THs. But the team of what we've spoken about there in the 3 years that he's been with us is. There's been a hell of a lot of adversity, Paddy, hasn't there? There's been a hell of a lot of adversity between squad overhauls, between injuries to your best player, and maybe, being inexperienced and having to learn in the moment when we were on the crest of a wave. Injuries to two good, like Ross Barkley was flying it. Like revisionist history doesn't really work well in my eyes, but Ross Barkley was flying it before he got injured in November last season, and his injury as much coincided with our crappy form as Jack Grealish's did. Then Jack Grealish just brought it down another level again then when he got injured as well. And then this year as well, having a truncated start to the season. John Terry leaves a week before the season starts. John Terry leaves 2 weeks or something. Richard O'Kelly leaves a week before the season starts. We've had all the COVID upheaval during the preseason. And it's just adversity that I suppose that you just don't want. But what we've seen is, yes, he's inexperienced. Yes, he's not the finished article. Yes, he makes mistakes. But he definitely is learning from stuff, and he's putting different processes in place, and he's overcoming adversity. Like, what more do you want? Like, genuinely, everybody's going to make a mistake. Every manager is going to be naive in a tactical situation, or naive from the point of view of maybe making substitutions. But Dean Smith is starting to delegate an awful lot of things now, so that he's got more eyes on stuff, so that he can learn himself. And man, that's just modern day management, and it's fantastic to see.
And I think the one admirable fact about Dean Smith is, and to my recollection, I don't recall him ever bemoaning all these things that have happened. He just gets on with it. He knows that moaning, even when we've been robbed in games by referees and penalties or whatever, he talks about, he tends to throw it back to, well, we should have been 2-0 up at that stage, or if we had taken our chances, we wouldn't have had to worry about it. He doesn't go down that line of saying, poor me. He just gets on with it. He doesn't go down the Paddy Kelly line of blaming the referee. So, there's a lot of admirable traits in him, 100%. And he's just a really good guy that way. I like it.
I think this is a poignant quote as well. Like, I genuinely would not have been able to say that this would have happened. But imagine back when Smith was appointed, if you said he'd get promoted, stay up and have a cup final, and then finish mid-table on points, and a points total that would normally get you top 7. It just, I suppose we wouldn't. And lest we forget as well, develop a player to be sold for a British transfer record. And now we always knew Jack Grealish was going. I always thought when Jack Grealish left, we get 10 cents in the dollar to him, but what we got was top money for him. And that in itself is another way to kind of stand up and show the big boys that, listen, we're at the table now, buddies. We don't need to send players for half nothing anymore. So that's a really good point. Paddy, I know you've got a couple of things. I've hijacked this completely for the last 48 minutes. I know that you have
we've probably mentioned most of them at this stage.
Dave Scott mentioned, and I know this is something that you had a piece where you'd done his best signings versus his worst signings as well. But who do you think is Dean Smith's best signing? It's Tyrone Mings for David. Smith has had more hits than misses when it comes to signings. Talk to us on that one, Paddy, because I know you wanted to speak a bit on that one.
Well, what he says there is a good point. We've had more hits than misses. Now, how you classify a miss would be how much money we spent on a player that didn't work out. Wesley probably being the worst of those from my point of view, but I haven't classed him as a miss yet because of the injury. I just think he never got a fair crack at a whip, and I still think there might be a player in there in the future, if not a player we can sell on. So I'm hoping he does quite well on his loan move. But for me, his best signing has been Emi Martinez. I know we mentioned him at the start of the show, being nominated and that, but I think that's been the biggest deal the Premier League has seen in many, many years. I think every Premier League team, every team in Europe would want Emi Martinez as he is now. I think he's the most incredible goalkeeper and just an amazing talent, and just the mindset. We saw the shithousery he got on with Bruno Fernandes and Ronaldo. That takes an amazing mindset to be able to do against two world-class players like that. So I'll just briefly go through these because I know we're going to be tight for time. So I did a top 5. So I had Martinez at number 1, Watkins at number 2, Mings at number 3, Cash at number 4, and Konza at number 5. So that went from the 30 up to 33 million we spent on Watkins down to spending just 12 on Ezri Konza. Whereas on the other side, what we'll call the flops, probably a bit unfortunate.
Can I go through my top 5 first?
Yeah, go.
Courtney House is number 1 anyway. Definitely. No, but Courtney House would be in my top 5. Because I shit you not, this is not me just playing to the gantry of that garmless old fool. As that man, for the squad player that he is, I just think, and for what he's done, he's come in and played, he'd probably come in at number 5. I would have Matty Cash at number 4. I would have Ezri Konza at 3. I would have Tyrone Mings at number 2, and I would have Emi Martinez at number 1. And Ollie Watkins is very, very unlucky to miss out there. And I think Ollie Watkins would obviously be my number 5. Really, if deep down in my heart and soul you had to ask me, Ollie Watkins would be in number 5 instead of Courtney House. But I think the defensive, the basically overhauling the whole defense as Dean Smith has done, and that defense. No one really ever looks at it and goes, oh, I think we could maybe change this person or that person. We're pretty happy there. And I know Targett might come in for a bit of stick now this season, but last season he was one of the best left backs in the Premier League. And that takes some bottle to be able to do from a team manager to go away in the space of 2 years to redevelop that whole back four. It took Pep €1 billion to be able to redevelop his back four, and he's still not happy with it. So fair play. Like to hit on 4 out of 4, essentially, 4 signings out of 4, and he hit on all of them. That's an absolutely crazy record. So I think the 4 of those guys and Ollie Watkins, the Martinez, Mings, Konza, Cash, and Watkins would be my 5.
Fair enough. We're only one discrepancy in there.
Yeah.
No surprise to have you with Courtney House in there. But
I was joking about Courtney House.
That was the easy part. I think it was easy to pick the best 5. I think the hardest part was to pick the worst 5. So I'm just going to go through them. 2 of them, by the way, were either free or on loan. So I had Danny Drinkwater at 5, Borja Baston at 4, Lovry Kalinic at 3, Jota at 2, and Samata at 1.
No, Tom Carroll.
But he didn't play. It's hard. You can't do that to the guy when he didn't even play.
Baston played 6 minutes or something last night.
But that's all he deserved.
Tom Carroll, I don't know. In an alternate universe, Borja Baston would have fired us to safety. No problem in the world. In an alternate universe. But yeah, I can't really agree with those. I can't really disagree with those. I can't really disagree with those at all, to be honest with you. We mentioned about his hits and misses. He's definitely had more hits than misses. I think his hits have been at such a high level that you're okay with having the Lovry Kalinic. And I don't even think I technically don't think he bought Lovry Kalinic either.
But that's the other point I was going to get to. I think of those 5, he probably only bought Jota himself.
Yeah. Yeah,
The rest of
100%.
them were probably forced on him. You know?
Absolutely, and that goes back to the adversity that he's gone through. He's had the Patash, Purslow, tug of war, alleged tug of war, and then he's had Johan Lange come in and had to get to know him and Lange, and then I'm not going to say missing out on a transfer window, but also having that transfer window maybe where the direction wasn't as clear cut when Lange first came in, and then obviously so there was. That's another side of the thing. The operational purchasing side off the field as well is something whereby he's comfortable with. He's like, get me the player, get me in the players that fit my system, and we'll see what happens. So that's another plus in his bucket, I think, as well.
Absolutely.
Will
I quickly go through my 3 best and worst moments of his time? So we'll go with the worst to start off with. I previously mentioned the losing 3-0 to Wigan. I thought that was one of the lowest ebbs of that first season.
Jesus,
and,
he was only in the gig, I'd say, about 5 weeks at that stage.
Yeah. And the team, in fairness, that day the team were just absolutely shocking. I don't even think that was his fault, but that was the moment where I thought it's about regrouping, as I said earlier, and hoping that we'd stay up. Little did we know we were going to get to the playoffs at that stage. The following year, just after Christmas, we lost 3-0 to Watford, and Watford were in the shite, and they dragged us back into it, and it really looked like the Grim Reaper was ready to come down on us at that stage. And a few weeks later, then was the third one. We lost 6-1 to Manchester City. I think that's probably the worst performance of all the 3 years that a Dean Smith team has. We just couldn't cope no matter what we did. Albeit we were after bringing in Danny Drinkwater, who drank more than water the night before, I would imagine. He was absolutely shocking. So we'll quickly move on from those. So for me, we discussed it earlier on. At number 3, the Carabao Cup run, getting to the final. I think that was an amazing achievement in itself, to go and beat Leicester over 2 legs as well, considering how badly we were doing in the league at the time. I thought that was exceptional. At number 2 was the 10-match unbeaten run leading up to promotion. And at number 1 was the hard work that was done to keep us in that division. And that's why I argued with you earlier on, because I had that at number 1. I do think that was vital for the history of the club.
And I agree. Look, I'm not going to disagree with any of those, because they are the highlights. And like we're even talking about, not like getting to a cup final would be a highlight for a lot of fans in many years. But it doesn't even register because of the pathway we're on, because of the path that we've come from, and we know that we're, in a lot of ways, we're lucky to have the club that we have based on what Tony Jean and Keith Vine has left us. So cup finals are great, and God willing, we get to one again this season and we go on and we win it. Like, we're never going to say no to them, but for the future of the club and for an achievement for this club, they've been some fantastic ones, absolutely fantastic ones in the rebuilding of this club, I think it's fair to say. So absolutely. I was just, I meant to do it before I came on, and I meant to see so Dean Smith, we'll leave you with this, a couple of statistics. So we've played 135 games under Dean Smith. We've won 55. We've drawn 28 and we've lost 52 with a 40.74% win rate. He has the highest win rate of his managerial career with Aston Villa, which is fantastic to see. He's averaging 1.25 points per game. So that is an interesting place to be. So 1.25, circa 1.25 points per game, give or take. But still, that's a nice number to have, and that even with that season that we had in the I suppose that season that we had in the Premier League, the first season, offset by the good season that he had in the Championship, or the good half season he had in the Championship. Those two offset each other. So it's a true enough reflection, I think, of where we have when we take away the highest and the lowest from him. So things are on the up. Our youth system is on the up underneath Dean Smith. Dean Smith gets it. It's not about him, as Matthew mentioned previously. It's about culture within this team. Before we finish up here, let's have a little look at some of the comments there as well. Just before we go. We finish up there. Simon says that game against West Ham in 2020, never been so nervous about a game since the one in 1982 against Bayern. Never want to go through that again. Simon, I wasn't born in 1982 against Bayern, so
Lucky you.
Lucky me. Yeah, well, I know. I look like I was born many years before that as well. For sure. Rob Henry says, I think history will show that this period was when the future was formed, getting back to the top, but also building of the best academy in football. I think that's the aim. That's the aim. If you can bring 3 or 4 people through that academy, you'd be in a very, very good spot. And look, that's as much Dean Smith's remit. He brought in, like, he wanted guys like Harrison and the other gentleman's name escapes me. They came in as well. So it is what it's there for the taking. Also, let's not forget as well, we still have Rob McKenzie on the books as well with regards to getting youth players in, getting senior players in as well. He's somebody who goes under the radar, and we all know the work that he did with Leicester as well, and getting players like Riyad Mahrez and so on. So hopefully he's unearthed somebody like that in a Leon Bailey for us as well. But also, like, a lot of those guys, Dean Smith would have had to sign off on those guys coming in to work with them, so he's okay with working on that. Owen Bradley is dead right. The whole club has gone through a massive transformation, top to bottom, absolutely. And who's the only consistent, bar Swiris and Edens, who's the only consistent football operations guy that's been in there through the whole lot of it? Dean Smith.
Exactly.
So that doesn't go on unmissed, I suppose, as well. And yeah, look, here's a good one as well. Delaney deserves a shout out. Delaney deserves a shout out too. Yeah. There's, like, whenever I say to people, when they say name the best 11 that have been in your lifetime, probably up until last year, I would have named Mark Delaney at right back, because we've just had such a lack of right backs, and people were going, Mark Delaney, who the hell is he? And I said, go back and just Google Mark Delaney sliding tackle on Gary Neville, and you'll know exactly why I want him in my my top 11. But so it's definitely, and he does deserve credit as well. So, guys, we've been here over an hour, and as I said, I did say a short one at the start, and I was true to my word.
It was never going to be a short one, Neil. And just before you finish up, I just want to finish on a couple of quotes from Dean Smith that I heard on. He did a podcast with Graham Hunter recently, and I urge everybody, whether you like Graham Hunter or not, go back and have a listen to it, because he did a 2-part show with Dean Smith. And the 2 things I took out of it was he likes his players to be humble and coachable, which is very important. And his philosophy is to be a manager that you'd want to be managed by. And I think that's really important, and a fine measure of the man, and a fine measure of the guy that we have at our helm. And shares a birthday with me. I'm very proud to have him there, and long may it continue. I hope we're looking back for many years to come. But for me, it's been such an enjoyable 3 years having him at the helm, and I really hope there'll be many more.
Paddy has his coaching badges. The way that Dean Smith turns over coaching staff, you never know. You might be able to use the fact you have the same birthday as him to get in there, and then we'll be sorted for tickets, Paddy, won't we? Be great. might be the way that I get a large jumper or a large top from the club shop, because they're like hen's teeth at the moment. Fingers crossed, Paddy. Fingers crossed. Apply for the job anyway. You never know what's the worst they can say. All right, guys. As I say, it's been nice looking back at Dean Smith's tenure over 3 years. Hopefully, we'll be doing this in another 3 years. Hopefully, we'll be doing this in another 10 years. And we'll be looking back on, as somebody mentioned there earlier on in the comments, I can't quite find it, if Dean Smith could go on to be our Ferguson. Why not? Longevity, stability is not something that Aston Villa have had at the managerial level. Why not? Let's start it now, and let's back Dean Smith. Let's go for him, and go with him, should I say, and let him take us to where he's going to take us. And for the time being, he's definitely doing a good job. We're progressing year on year, and not only on the table, but in the backroom staff, in the off the field, globally, with our perception globally, as I say. So fair play to him. come through adversity. It hasn't been exactly perfect, but has been exactly what we needed, I think, over the last few years. So thanks ever so much, everybody, for joining us for this chat more so than anything else. I'm Dean Smith. It's been nice to get on during the international break. We will be back next week. We do have a special guest joining next week, and we will be back next Wednesday with something, and then we'll do a pre-match chat then as well. And Paddy's going to be over in Villa Park for the Wolves game, so we'll have another team sheet tantrum from outside Villa Park for the Wolves game.
I think it will be outside as opposed to inside this time, because I'll be enjoying having a few points with guys I haven't seen in a very long time. So it'll be outside.
Get them all on. Get them all on.
And I don't want to be thrown out of Villa Park. I don't mind being thrown out of Tottenham Hotspur Stadium,
exactly.
not being thrown out of Villa Park.
Exactly. Well, thanks so much, everybody. As I say, we started off the podcast, we started off the show this evening saying that if you do have anything to spare, and look, we know that not everybody is rolling in at the moment after the pandemic that we've been in, but there's other people out there that are less fortunate than us. Guys like Kieran O'Callaghan and Ben, B6 Ben O'Callaghan are doing the sleep out. There's tons of other people. If you know if somebody is doing the sleep out, you haven't donated yet, I would suggest, for a fantastic cause for the foundation, to donate to it. But as I say, Godspeed to all those people that are sleeping out, and hopefully the weather is good for them. And hopefully, if they're watching this, we applaud you all and thank you so much for the work that you're doing for the foundation, and for for that side of the charity that Aston Villa support as well. So thanks everybody for watching this podcast. Thanks everybody for listening. Thanks for everything you do. If you could give us a little like, if you're not subscribed to the channel already, give us a little subscription. And if you're not subscribed in the audio version, we'd love it if you subscribe to the audio version, even if you never listen there as well. It all just helps the podcast. It costs nothing, and it would be very much appreciated. But until next Wednesday, we will be back with another show then. Everybody have a fantastic weekend. Don't get too hung up on the internationals, but I wish everybody, whoever's international team is playing this weekend, I wish them well, and we'll see you next week. And all that's left to say is up the Villa.
Up the Villa.